This is Fast Attack Slow Release, the performance audio podcast. I'm just kidding, I don't talk like that. We got Dan Buehner here today, the illustrious Daniel Buehner, at Daniel Young Songs on Instagram, all that stuff. Country music extraordinaire, rock and roll music extraordinaire, musician.
Oh, wow, thank you.
Father to dog. What's up, buddy?
How you doing?
I'm good. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me.
So we're starting this new podcast, the official performance audio podcast. I wasn't making that up. And when we started kind of thinking about it, something that I thought sounded really kind of interesting was talking to some of our employees and customers and whoever about kind of your path to like what brought you here.
Yeah.
So one thing that I like about learning someone's story is learning kind of what motivates you, what drives you, and I think that's important for knowing what informs kind of like your artistry or like your music, and you are a local musician.
Yeah.
In a couple bands.
Yeah. I play drums in the Hollering Pines. I do my own music under Daniel Young Songs on Instagram.
The Daniel Young Songs.
Yeah. But yeah, I do a lot of songwriting. I do some songwriting in the Hollering Pines, but mostly just play drums, and which I like to do. I like to just sit back, and it's a different approach, just playing the drums than being the front man and writing songs and singing them. I like to do the backbeat as well.
So what did you start playing first then, drums or guitar?
So I started playing guitar in 6th grade. I hated it.
Why did you do it?
Well, my mom wanted me to learn an instrument, and I didn't want to learn piano, and I wish I would have started with piano now,
really?
Looking back. Yeah, but I wanted to learn guitar because I wanted to learn my favorite songs, and I thought it would be more interesting than playing piano.
Do you remember kind of like what song you heard that really kind of cemented like, I want to do that? Well, for me, there were like a couple that I was like, that just kind of pushed me to like, I should really learn to recreate that song.
Right. I remember I was really into CCR, to Credence. At the time. The first song I learned was Down on the Corner.
Nice.
But yeah, in 6th grade, that was a big deal for me. It's just like, man, this is cool. I'm actually playing one of the songs that I love. It's a real simple part, but at the time seemed really
freaking cool.
Really, really cool.
That rush of like, when you first start playing an instrument, you just get this rush when you do something successfully for the first time. That,
right.
While having never done heroin, I think probably feels a lot like that.
I probably Down on the Corner is a lot like heroin.
No, on the corner especially.
But yeah, that was the first song I learned, and I did, for some reason, I don't think I liked my guitar teacher, and so it wasn't exciting for me, and so I quit after a year.
The guitar teacher is a big one, because like looking back, the guy was awesome, but I was like 15 and angsty, and it's like, I just want to learn metal, man.
Yeah.
And he's teaching me Boston and CCR. I'm like, what is this hippie crap?
Yeah, Kansas.
I really like CCR now, by the way.
I love CCR.
Yeah. So, okay. So, how long was it after you started playing guitar that you started getting into drums?
Yeah. So I quit guitar, and then, well, I guess I quit guitar for about a year, and then I was super into playing basketball. So
That's
all
funny
my
because
time.
Dan is 5 feet 8 inches tall.
I am. I stopped growing after 6th grade. I was 5'8" in 6th grade, and I still am. And then went back to playing guitar after about a year. After I stopped growing, figured I better choose something else.
Muggsy Bogues was short too. I don't want to be like heightist or anything. I don't know if that's a thing that people feel, but.
So then I played guitar for another 2 years and loved it, and I have played ever since. But then after that, my brother is a drummer, and he moved out of the house, left his drum kit there, and so I went into his room every night and played to Pearl Jam, the band records, I'll get into the
Mhm.
band later, but that's how I learned.
Nice.
I've never had a drum teacher.
Drums seem to be a little bit more that way.
Yeah.
And I think a drum teacher definitely helps, but like I was the same way. Like when I picked up drums, I was like, I don't need someone to teach me how to hit something.
Yeah. I mean, for some of the stuff, I really wish I would have had a teacher. I wish I was a jazz drummer. I think
Yeah.
those guys are amazing.
Because they
and-
count higher than 4.
That's right. Now here we go with the drum jokes.
So you pick up guitar, you drop guitar, you pick up drums, you pick up guitar again. At what point did you start recording? Because it seems to me like you learned recording pretty organically, like starting from analog.
Yeah.
Is that?
So going back to the band called The Band.
The band.
The Band. They are my favorite band, and I started listening to them in 8th grade, and I remember seeing photos of them in the studio and tape machines everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
Tape machines were everywhere, and I thought,
Yeah.
man, is this how they were recording this music on all these machines? And so I started digging into it more and reading more about it, and that's where I got my fascination with analog, and really digging into it with the Beatles, how they recorded, and
Just like old school, like 8-track.
yeah, old school, even like 4 tracks, and really just to see what you can do with
Mhm.
with 4 tracks.
Yeah.
It was really fascinating to me, and I was I was in 8th grade. I didn't have much money. I didn't have many microphones, so I really was restricted on what I could do, and I think that really helped.
I don't think there are a lot of 8th graders that have any microphones, let
Yeah.
alone just not a lot.
Right. No, I mean that's what I saved up for and spent my money on, and I still have some of that gear from when I was a kid
Mm-hmm.
in my studio, and that's where it started. I started with analog, and loved learning how to splice tape and learning how to even just the different sizes of tape was
Yeah.
fascinating to me.
Yeah, and it's still to me, because I'm not a, I don't know, genius. I still don't understand. I probably have notes on this somewhere, but I still don't understand what makes like a 2-inch tape sound so much better. Like a 24-track 2-inch tape sounds so much better than a 12-track 1-inch tape. You know what I
Right.
mean?
Right.
But it does, and it's
It does.
amazing.
It's fatter.
Yeah,
It's fatter sounding, and there's more information on it.
yeah.
More
Just
detailed,
like-
right?
Okay. Mm-hmm.
But I mean, now, there's so many plugins that get very close, but I still don't think it's the exact same thing
Sure.
as recording into a tape machine and going through the transformers. But I mean, digitally, you can get very close now.
Yeah, but there's really no perfect emulation for tape saturation, because there is a
Right.
mechanical process involved. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like you're in like an actual moving piece of tape is moving across a magnetic head. You can't
Yeah.
really. To me, it's like building a physics engine in a video game almost. Like you can come close, but it's always just going to be a little bit wonky, right?
Totally.
And wonky is the wrong word, because I use tape emulation all the time because
And
I
I do
don't
too
have a
now.
beautiful analog studio.
Yeah.
But it's just it's a close but no cigar kind of thing.
Yeah.
So what gear do you still have that
From
you
when
had
I
in
was a
8th
kid.
grade?
Well, I still have one of my original tape machines. I have a 8-channel, was it the Tascam 80-8?
Really,
Mm-hmm. I got that when I was 8th, 9th grade. I saved up for it.
really.
Mm-hmm.
Where did you get it from?
It was from Discount Music in Bountiful, Utah.
No way. That's so cool. When I was 8 years old, I was still trying to figure out how to be a drummer. Like, how am I
Yeah.
going to get my hands on a drum set? My parents got me one when I was like 4, but it was like a super cheap Toys R Us one with like paper heads. And my brother's idiot friends came over and put a hole through it, and that was just the end of my drumming career for all time until I saved up my own money. My parents were just like, well, that's it for music for Nate.
I think
Enjoy.
that's how it started with Neil Peart, too.
For real?
I don't know.
He is the greatest drummer of all time. Shut up, Dan.
We can edit some of this, right?
Yes.
Okay, cool.
Most of it.
Cool. Yeah, most of it's going to be out.
Maybe. I don't know. Do you need some water or anything?
I'm okay.
I mean, I'm not going to share my straw with you, but
Nah, I'm okay. That water looks brown.
yeah, I put some like Starbucks.
Okay,
not
good.
Starbucks, like some Mio sweet tea in here.
I didn't know
earlier.
if that's how it was coming out of our tank right now.
And this is my sun tea. That's bass.
Oh, jeez. But yeah, I actually remember.
Sorry.
I remember buying that first tape machine, and there was a guy that worked there at Discount Music. His name was Craig. I mean, they didn't sell recording gear there really. It was a guitar shop.
Yeah.
It was his personal tape machine, and he's like, "I'll bring it in. You just need to clean the tapes or the heads." And I had no idea what he was talking about. He's like, "What are you talking about?" And so I was like, "Well, I'll buy it off you, but you need to show me how to clean this," because I didn't even know what he's talking about. So he brings it in, gets his Q-tips, and that's where it all started. And I love, for some reason, I love cleaning machines and maintaining them. It's just
like
awesome.
It's like a Zen kind of thing almost.
It is.
It's funny that he was going to make you take it home and swab it, though, because that's like a 5-minute thing. That's like your 5 minutes of Zen, like just peaceful, mindful. It's like doing the dishes, but better because it means you're about to make music.
Yeah. And I had no idea. I had no idea that you had to do that. I didn't know you had to calibrate it. I didn't know you had to get an MRL tape to calibrate it to what you want to record at. And so it was cool to learn that at a young age.
Yeah.
Because it did help me with recording as I got into analog. I have a 1-inch machine now. I want a 2-inch eventually, but
you and me both.
I can't fit it down my stairs. My studio is in my basement, and I'm running out of room. I don't know where to put a 2-inch machine. But
what's the name of your studio?
It's called Orchard Studios in North Salt Lake.
Cool. It is a cool room, though. Like, I mean, I've never been invited to your house, but I've seen pictures online.
Yeah,
you know, Zillow and whatnot when I can't sleep at night. You got really weird hours posted, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Really weird.
Yeah, man, you need to change that.
Yeah, you should really get on Yelp and change that. So you're on Orchard Sound. You've got, you know, and I mean this Orchard Sound?
Orchard Studios.
So you got Orchard Studios in your basement, with your old 8th grade gear that, I mean, obviously, you know, you weren't living you didn't grow up in that house, right?
No.
So you moved all this stuff over. When you bought that tape machine initially, like, where did you keep it? Because if I brought like a 1-inch tape machine is not a small machine. Like, and recording equipment isn't like, it doesn't take up just a little bit of space.
Especially analog gear.
Yeah. If I would have brought something like that home, it would have sat outside until it rusted into absolute nothingness. Where did you keep
Which would
it?
give it more character. I mean,
oh
that's
yeah,
great.
you know, nowadays it's for the sound.
So growing up, I had I have a few rooms in the basement in my parents' house growing up, where they were cool enough to let me rehearse and turn one of those rooms into a recording spot.
Mm-hmm.
And then when they'd go out of town, I would use the whole house as a recording studio. So the piano was upstairs. The tape machine would stay downstairs, obviously, but then we would put mics upstairs. We'd use the big living room. We'd use the kitchen, any reverb, anything that I could find naturally in the house I would use.
And so you had help with that?
Me and one of my good friends that now lives in New York, him and I played a lot of music together, and this was like a first band kind of situation? Yeah, it was. It was a first band. We were called a lot of different names, but the K-Liners.
The K-Liners.
The K-Liners, like the train, like the freight train K-Liner.
Okay.
So yeah, that was probably one of the first more serious bands that we were in. We would always skip school and go rehearse at the house, and that's all we did. That's all we did.
How old were you?
Yeah, that started 9th grade, sophomore year of high school.
So like 15 years old?
Yeah.
Nice. That's about when I started doing it too. I lived way out in the country, so if I wanted to skip school to go home and make music, which is what we did because I played the drums in my band, we had to skip like all day. It wasn't just like ditch a class and go rehearse. It was ditch a class, drive an hour. So It takes some commitment.
That's great, though. It means you don't have to go back because it's so far away.
Yeah, exactly. So we
Yeah.
just stayed at home and broke the law.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think if there's one thing high school teaches you, it's like about what you would rather be doing rather than being at school.
Right. So another band name was Cincinnati Bromance. That was my favorite band name. That only lasted like a year because we had to change so many members.
So the romance died.
The romance was gone.
You guys were kind of like Mouse Rat then, just a bunch of different names.
Yeah, and I don't know why we didn't keep just one name.
Because you were 15.
Yeah, and we kept switching members of the band, and so we thought, well, we can't call ourselves that now.
That name's dead to us forever now.
Yeah, so I mean, it started with
the jersey.
Riverside Travelers. We had the Curbs. Ended up with the K-Liners for a long time. We were the I can't remember all the other ones.
There's a lot.
There's a lot of different names we went by, but K-Liners stuck for a long time.
Nice. Your band names are so much better than the names of the bands. My first band was just called Sod. And we got the idea because the guitar player, who was bad, he's the reason I started playing guitar, was to teach him to play guitar.
That's amazing.
But he was just driving past a grass truck one day, just not a marijuana truck, but I mean, for the old timers out there, I mean, like a truck hauling sod. He's like, that's the name of our band now.
Wow.
And then his stepdad changed it to Shafid. We didn't get any shows.
I can't take any of the credit for the band names. That was my friend Ben that would come up with all those names.
Good job, Ben.
Yeah, he was very creative, and now he's a professor in New York.
So that kills the answer to my next question that I'm going to ask anyway. Ben is not in the Hollering Pines.
No. I try to keep Ben included in my musical life as much as I can. Mm-hmm. It's hard because now he doesn't live in Utah, but he is a great writer, and so he writes all of our biographies. And
cool.
Yeah, that's Ben that does all that.
So does he have any connection when I went and saw you guys for your album release for Mansions of Heartache? That was at AeroPress Square, right?
It was Mandate Press.
Mandate Press, sorry.
His name is Ben as well.
Okay, but it's a different Ben.
Different Ben, yeah.
Okay.
He's another good friend of mine, but it is a different Ben. Ben runs the Mandate Press down there in downtown Salt Lake, yeah.
That was one of the most just kind of like tasteful local music shows I think I've ever been to. You guys had
cool.
themed cocktails that I couldn't drink because I just quit sugar.
Yeah, too many of those cocktails, man.
The bartender, I mean, he made up for it. I was like, can I just have some whiskey? And he's like, here's an entire glass of whiskey, like an entire Tom Collins. So, I mean, I still had a good time. But we were in this beautiful, it's in downtown Salt Lake City, the Mandate Press. Mm-hmm. I just remember there was this giant banner behind you that was just this beautiful soliloquy about just the art of writing.
Right.
And I thought it was a really just kind of perfect setting for,
yeah,
it was a really
I
intimate
love that
venue.
Banner.
Yeah. It was a really intimate venue, and you had this band singing really just kind of like soulful from the heart. It was clearly like a special night, and then you just had this other aspect of the arts present as well that you don't really think of music and writing in the same breath a lot of times, but they're both very much rooted in creation. So I don't know. I thought the entire evening was just beautiful and well done.
Oh, thanks, man. I'm glad you were there. We have another release show coming up, so maybe we'll have another themed cocktail for you.
I got my CD today.
Yeah.
Moments in Between.
So yeah, our next Hollering Pines record is called Moments in Between.
I got it.
Nate has a copy, but it's not released. It gets released June 7th into the world.
We got the special pre-release.
Yep.
I paid a lot of money for it. I funded the entire album.
Yeah.
I did not get any executive mention in any of the liner notes. I feel like they misspelled my name a lot as Scott Wiley. But, what do I know? I haven't listened to the record yet. But,
Thanks.
I got it. I got it an hour ago, and you'd be surprised at how hard it is to find a CD player now.
Yeah, it is.
I was about to just like throw that right on my music server.
Yeah, there's no CD players in computers.
No, and yeah,
There's probably cassette players in computers now.
Yeah, but you guys have had. It's true. Cassettes are coming back, and I don't know why. You do though, and besides just the CDs, you're also releasing it on like a limited edition yellow vinyl.
Yeah, so we
I'm
are
excited.
doing vinyl. That's another thing I love is vinyl. I'm probably the only one pushing that in the band.
Really?
But no, I mean I'm the only one very very excited about it because I collect vinyl and it's cool to have your own art on vinyl.
Yeah,
But it is it's a limited edition, 300 yellow records that we did at Blue Sprocket Pressing in Virginia.
cool. I'm excited to see it. I love vinyl as well. I'm surprised that no one else in your band is super into vinyl. Like, I don't know, as a country band, I don't know why, but I just think like if you're into country, like you're kind of into kind of like I don't want to say like the simpler or finer things. That's not quite what I'm going for, but like a nice, like a good record and a nice whiskey just sounds, and probably a country record actually. Like that just sounds extra Nashville.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised by
well,
that.
well, and I think they're into vinyl, just not as much as I am.
Okay.
I'm a vinyl freak,
Yeah.
and I love putting the record on, opening up the cover, reading the lyrics, reading the liner notes, and it's an experience. It's not just something that's in the background. It's like I'm putting a record on, and I have to stay
There's
in
a
the room.
ritual about it.
Yeah, yeah. Now I have to stay in the room. I have to switch it to side B when it runs out, and it is a ritual. It's something that you sit down and it's like watching a TV show. I'm going to listen to this record right now.
Yeah. Well, and as an artist, I think writing with vinyl in mind is really cool as well because, you know, like when you get up and flip the record, it's like you're listening to the same album, but it's almost like time for I think of Dark Side of the Moon as an example of like it's the same album and it flows from start to finish, but it's very obvious when you flip that vinyl over the side B. It's just like okay, like and we're back. You know what I mean? You know, it was like here's your potty break song.
Yeah,
or not your potty break song because I think the last track on side A is "Great Gig in the Sky," right? So and then like so you get this like long like this really I listened to it camping the other day, so it just kind of dies out and it's beautiful, and then you flip it over and it's time. You know what I mean? It's like
right.
And I think writing with that kind of thing with mine as an artist is really cool, but also as the person consuming it. And so I'm interested. We are definitely not the only people who are like into vinyl. Like it's seeing this whole revival, and I think
as of late, it's really come back, right?
Yeah, like a lot. And so like as a band, like when you guys, because you printed vinyl for the last album,
Yeah.
Did you even bother with CDs?
We did, and we didn't know if we should, but people still buy them.
Yeah,
people still buy them, and
so you don't think that vinyl's necessarily replacing it then?
It's hard to say. For me, it is. I have so many CDs in my basement for my collection that's just collecting dust now.
Right.
And I think a lot of people are the same way. It's like, what am I doing with my CDs now? I just listen to vinyl or stream it on my phone.
Right. I'm the same way.
Yeah, but I do know a lot of people that still collect CDs. But I think vinyl is. I think it is replacing it. But I'm really surprised that people still buy CDs at our shows.
Yeah.
And I think if you still have a CD player in your car, I think that's how they like to listen to it.
Sure.
You know, put the CD in, and I like to do that too.
Yeah.
But it depends on the show too. It depends where we're at. I remember we played a festival in Virginia, and we sold like 50 CDs and 2 vinyl.
Really?
And the guy at the merch table just said, "I don't know what it is. We don't sell vinyl here. We sell CDs."
Weird.
And maybe it's because it's a camping festival and you don't want your vinyl to melt.
Sure. Yeah, I mean that makes sense.
Maybe that's it. I don't know.
Vinyl's not allowed to get super hot. But I guess like as I think about it, like we're talking about rituals with vinyl. Like there's a ritual to CDs too. But for me, it's like flipping through that CD book while you're driving.
Yeah.
Or at a red light. But when you're driving, and it's a lot better than scrolling through Spotify again, only at red lights. But I do kind of miss like that, just like the sound of the page, just like flipping over and like and you identified what album you wanted, but what CD you wanted to listen to by the art on the CD. You know what I mean?
Right.
And I do find myself missing that. I feel like I'm a better driver. I mean, stoplight sitter at her when I'm flipping through CDs, then
A lot more
I don't know what
patient.
it is about like a phone. I guess it's just so much harder to see. I don't know.
Well, it's different. It's different. You have everything. It's almost overwhelming. You open Spotify or Apple Music, and there's too much.
Yeah.
For me, there's too much where I have everything in front of me and I don't know what to pick.
I agree. The first time I downloaded Spotify, I like everything I liked, I suddenly forgot. I was like, what do I listen to? Like if you go through my CDs that I own from, I don't know, like 5-10 years ago versus like what Spotify thinks I want to hear every week on Discover Weekly, they're two, I would say, near polar opposites. Like it's like a dichotomy in my music preference.
Right.
So, but yeah, I agree. So it's super overwhelming. And I guess what I'm trying to say is maybe stream less and like buy local CDs and vinyl records more.
Yeah,
I don't know.
buy any record. You know, I mean, local or not, there's no money in streaming. It's ridiculous for the artists. You don't get anything.
So this Grammy-winning electronic music artist posts like a screenshot of his Spotify report, and for millions of streams a month, he was getting like $150, $200, just something outrageous. It's like
If that.
0.0001 cents per play.
Mm-hmm.
And every time I use Spotify, I remember that, and I feel guilty about it, but I do it anyway. You know what I mean? But I mean, as a local band, like you kind of rely on people coming to shows, buying a shirt, buying a CD. You know, because the only way that you're going to get people to pay attention to you on Spotify is like having the capital to get all that out there.
Right. Yeah, I mean, if you're coming to the show and you buy a shirt or a record, I mean, that's really where we get our money, and try to break even doing this thing we love. You know, because we're not on a label or anything. All our albums are self-released. And going back to Spotify, I like to open up Spotify to see if I like a record. I think I use it now as I really like this. Now I'm gonna go buy it.
Yeah,
but
like a music discovery service.
Right.
Yeah.
And
there's value in that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I wish I had enough money where I could just go buy every record I want just to see if I like it or not. But
Right.
I mean, that's kind of what Spotify and Apple Music does for me now. And if I really like it and I've noticed, I've listened to this a lot, I better go buy it.
Yeah.
So that's how I use those services.
Cool. So I just kind of want to get back to your analog workflow, because you know a lot of people want to work analog. You know, I think most people agree that analog sounds better. I mean, Dave Grohl made an entire movie about it, which is brilliant, by the way. I really like that movie.
Right.
So I mean, when did you from there and you know you realized that analog is awesome? What was it that pushed you into going digital?
Honestly, so I took I interned at a local studio, Counterpoint Studios. They were using Pro Tools. And I told them, I said, I honestly have only been using analog. This is when I started working for them when I was probably 24, around there.
Yeah,
and,
I remember meeting you there.
Yeah,
I was
you're doing a session there. Yeah, that's where we met. But I told them, I said, I only know how to do analog. And they said, well, we just sold our tape machine, and we're only using Pro Tools right now. But they had a really beautiful Neve console, and so that was really exciting for me. But that's where I had to dig in and learn the other end of it, and it was cool to learn it in a big studio like that.
Yeah,
you know. But I did have to do a lot of homework at my house on my little laptop that I had at the time, always crashing on me, and I hated Pro Tools because everything would always crash on me. But come to find out, it was my laptop.
It was really unstable on laptops for a long time. Like
Hated
especially
it.
like 7, 8. Like it's gotten a lot better now. You can throw Pro Tools 12 on a laptop, and I mean like laptops have come so far, and like Pro Tools has gotten so much more efficient. It's crazy where you can take your recording rig nowadays.
Right.
But yeah, I mean back in the 7 and 8 days, that wasn't the case.
No, I started with 8, and it was terrible. And so I would get so mad that I would just put my laptop to the side and turn my tape machine back on and be like, there, it's booted up. It took 2 seconds.
Yeah.
But that's where I really had to dig in, and I got a nicer computer. I got better versions of Pro Tools, better plugins, and learned a lot of it at Counterpoint.
Nice.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if you're the same way, but like I can study something like that all I want, but until I actually just like put my hands on it and do it. And I think that's a lot of recording and music in general. I mean, you can talk to me about music theory, but until I apply it, I'm not going to remember it. I'm not going to understand it.
Right. I'm the same way. Yeah.
And so I think, especially with something like Pro Tools, people don't understand that like a lot of these digital audio workstations or DAWs, it's learning a language in a lot of ways. Just like learning analog signal flow is like you're learning this whole new concept, and it's not one of those things that you're good at day one.
Yeah.
We seem to get a lot of people that will come in here and like they open Pro Tools once and then they throw their hands in the air and they think they're an idiot. But I mean, that's really not what it is. It's like you need time.
Mm-hmm.
So after you were learning Pro Tools at Counterpoint, and you got all that like firsthand experience with that, at what point did you start using outboard gear? Because I've seen you pick up a lot of outboard gear. You're really enthusiastic about different microphone preamps, compressors.
Mm-hmm.
You still have that those real analog roots, and that's what I actually really enjoy talking to you about recording a lot, because you've got those analog roots, and it's nice. Like it's nice to talk to people that still kind of have that perspective that it's a whole thing.
Right. I love outboard gear because it's hands-on. Instead of moving your mouse over and moving a knob, you have the knob. Whether it's a preamp or compressor or limiter or whatever, it's all hands-on. But going back to the band, the way they recorded, I would search out, like, okay, what were they using for preamps? What were they using? It's like, of course, they weren't using the interface. It's like, what were they using? Then I would search it out, and everything was over $10,000 for each piece. So I was like, but then I would find other outboard gear that I could put in the studio that was a little cheaper.
Mm-hmm.
So I would get, I got some. First off, I got some UA preamps that were tubed. I love warm sound. I think that's why I've always been drawn to analog, because it's warmer, and so I like the tube sound, and I like the just the tube saturation.
Mm-hmm. It's got kind of like an indefinable characteristic to it. Like people often say like punch or warmer, but like just listening to analog, especially like hearing it right off the tape machine, there's not a lot that emulates that experience. Mm-hmm. And I think it inspires you to make even more music. And I think just about any artist will tell you this. Like the first time you record, you learn so much about yourself as a musician. And then I think the second time you come in and record, you learn so much about like just how ethereal a good recording can be, and how like once you experience that coming right back off that tape machine, like you don't want to go back to anything else.
Yeah, definitely. That's the purest sound to me, is when you hear it coming off the tape machine into the monitors, your headphones. It's the purest sound you'll ever hear.
You're smiling a little bit just talking about it.
Yeah, I mean, it gives me the chills to think about it, because I remember the first time I recorded on tape and I played it back. It's like, oh my God, this almost sounds like the records I listened to, because this is how they recorded.
Yeah, and it fills up the whole room almost kind of. To me anyway, it just seems like the whole room kind of just fills up with that, not only just like that sound, but just this weird kind of ungraspable emotion a little bit.
Yeah,
it's just
definitely.
Like there's definitely some ecstasy involved, just like, but also just pride, and just like I did that.
Right.
And like my walls are reflecting my art back at me in the purest possible way it could ever be replayed.
Yeah, definitely. And on those same lines, I think, if you have I like to do a lot of live recording, meaning the whole band is in the studio at the same time, to get that feel of, this is what we play. We're not going to do a lot of overdubs. Let's just play our song and see what happens. And I think that's really that's really where the magic happens, is
Yeah.
in the studio, within those walls. After that, when you're you're pressing the record or whatever, all that is just kind of like
Kind of a grind.
work. It's
Yeah.
kind of work to me.
Mm-hmm.
Where the real magic is in the studio, and it really is inspiring. When you nail a song and you think, oh, I just want to keep writing.
Yeah.
And I used to be so worried about how many streams do I have? How many streams do we have? Are we even moving forward as a band, or am I moving forward as a solo artist? But now I've really realized the music's for me.
Yeah.
This is for me, and this is what I will always do because it keeps me going. It's in my blood, and if I don't do it, I'm going to go crazy.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I like about listening to like your music in particular, is it's very much like just kind of working through some things. Like here's how I'm feeling and thinking on paper, like it or don't. I don't really care. But, like this is to me, like that's the whole point of music, is like this is an insight into me. Like I hope you can identify. But
Totally.
really, at the end of the day, it's me.
Totally.
Yeah.
And I love making the audience think, is that about him? Or is that a story?
Yeah.
But it's really, if you're writing that about you, you're really putting yourself out there and you're vulnerable. And
Yeah.
But I think that's really, it's inspiring when you hear other artists do that.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's scary too.
it's frightening.
It's a lot to. It's a weird when you write a song, or when I write a song, and people don't like it, which is often.
Oh, come on, man.
It's just it's really weird, because you're like, that was my entire heart and soul, and you feel like rejected as a human being almost.
Right.
But I mean, on the opposite side of that, people really connect with you in your music, and what you do with like your solo stuff and the Holler Pines both. Like people really connect with that. You guys.
Everyone's going through something,
Yeah, and there's a lot of people that'll identify with that, and I think that's kind of like the specificity of kind of like, especially country music in particular, but like even like the country Americana kind of brand stuff. It's all kind of that way, and I think that's why we've come back around to it recently.
Yeah, and I think that's why I've always loved it, because they're real stories.
Yeah,
there's stories, and it's experiences, and everyone can relate. Life's tough.
Yeah.
Life's tough, and everyone's going through something, and that's why I've always loved country and Americana. There's always, and I love writing it too, because I can really express myself.
Yeah, and it's real.
It's very real.
Yeah. So, I've got one more thing I want to ask you about, having to do again with the Poller and Hines, the Holler and Pines. You had an incident involving some sprinklers at an outdoor show that I think really kind of highlights why you should choose your venue carefully.
Yeah. All you listeners, be very careful with your equipment, and whether that's your instruments or your microphones or your mixer when you're playing live, make sure that the venue has turned off the sprinklers if you're playing an outdoor venue, because we had an incident where it was actually the last song, and boom, sprinklers are on all around the stage. We're surrounded by sprinklers. They got the mixer, they got the microphones, got the bass amp, got some of the guitar amps, my drums, soaking wet.
Did it just erupt into chaos on the stage?
We had the crowd was coming up helping us. We had luckily one of our coworkers, one of our friends, Harley, and his wife were there, and they came over and stepped on one of the sprinklers, go back in the ground. But there were 8 other sprinklers. So
I can imagine Harley just doing the splits, trying to reach 2 sprinklers at the same time.
Yeah, it was amazing. I was so glad that they were there, because they helped while we were I just started throwing gear off of the stage, and some of the audience members, I think we had a total of 3 people there watching us that day. So all 3 of them came up and helped us as well, moving gear off. So we got it off pretty quick, but it did ruin a lot of our stuff. So be very careful of the venues you choose.
Nice. Well, thanks for talking to me today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
I really appreciate your insight. I think, You're a great guy. You were awesome to agree to be on our very first podcast ever.
I'm excited we're doing this.
Yeah, me too. I've enjoyed talking to you. I think you've got some awesome stuff, and I hope we'll have you on again.
Oh, thanks, Nate.
All right. To hear more of Dan's solo stuff, you can visit www.danielyoungsongs.com. If you'd like to learn more about the Hollering Pines, you can visit them at www.theholleringpines.com. You can visit them on Facebook, check them out on Instagram, or listen to their stuff on YouTube. My name is Nate Brown. Thanks for checking us out this week. This is Fast Attack Slow Release. Thanks to Performance Audio for putting this on. We'll talk to you soon.